I was really diagnosed at a really young age. And what I've always craved was just a person who could sit across me and ask me how I'm doing. If you're not receiving assistance or guidance in how to sort through feelings and thoughts, you may fall into other traps or other cycles of trying to restore this wound or this broken heart or make sense of a condition, because that's the only coping mechanism that you can get your hands on. To stop a beast, you don't just look at it in front, you need to analyze it from all angles.
Welcome to Crossing the Last Mile, a podcast by UNAIDS East and Southern Africa, hosted by Anne Givuku Shongwe. Join us for this and other episodes as we tell the remarkable story of resilience and undying hope for the journey to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030. This podcast is supported by the Partnership Together for SRHR and is available on all podcast platforms. Walk with us as we go crossing the last mile.
I am Nomonde Ngema. I am 22 years old, born with HIV, and literally overnight became an activist when all I literally did was pick up a camera, share my story, and advocate for the rights of adolescent girls and young women living with HIV. And since then, it has become my greatest passion. What I do is advocate for girls like me, because I know what it's like to live with HIV in the society. And so I really just create content that resonates with, my peers and other people actually who are just living with HIV in general, and just the general public also that's not living with HIV, to educate them about HIV. And yeah.
What does a typical day look like for you?
Well, daily life now looks a bit different, especially since accepting my story, accepting that HIV is a part of my story and then emerging greater than the virus itself. But I would say that every time the clock hits 6 p.m., I already know that in 2 hours I need to take my pills, which is kind of frustrating when I am not in close proximity or currently doing work. And so it gets very stressful. So, daily life is manageable, but the reminder sometimes comes with a lot of frustrations, because maybe I had a long day and I want to be asleep by 7. I can't really. I need to stay up so that I can take, my medication. But to be honest, I think accepting your status is the revolution in this journey. It does transform how your daily life looks because you're able to really just pour yourself into every other thing that goes on. You're able to live life holistically. Before accepting my HIV status, the only thing I would think about is HIV and the pills. But since pouring myself into life itself, I'm able to just be, and because it's part of my story, it doesn't take necessarily all of my time and all of my mind thoughts. I'm able to do other things like friendships. I'm able to go out, have fun. I'm able to go to brunches. I'm able to dress up and look nice. I'm able to sit behind a camera and advocate. Or go into rooms and advocate. So daily life now looks very different. And I think it all comes from understanding who you are and what HIV isn't, and maybe boxing it into something that's going to make your life, manageable. And for me, it was essentially creating a dream for myself, because when you're born with HIV, when you're living your HIV, you automatically assume that there's an existing dream that you're supposed to be living under.
Global organizations, including the World Health Organization and the UN, are backing targets to end AIDS as a public health threat by 2030.
We are ready. We are ready for 2030. We are ready for 2030.
I don't think there's enough resources and platforms to help people living with HIV, young people, women, living with HIV, to make sense of the journey. You don't just wake up and you accept your status. There are stages that you go through: denial, rejecting the story, isolation. Like, it's a lot. Those are things that are very difficult for most young people to sort through, because because a lot of young people have a dependency on other people to help them make language of what they're feeling and what they are thinking, and then they're not able to get to the solutions or the end of the tunnel on their own, and so they need a bit of assistance. For example, me, right? I've always just been a sort of young person who enjoys isolation and living in my head and having profound conversations. I really, really enjoy that. I have unbearable feelings, inexpressible thoughts and questions. And so with HIV existing part of my story, it made it very difficult for me to express myself and how I felt to friends and family. Had I not been someone who's self-aware or reads a lot, or maybe, just dared to make sense of this reality and actually make it work and find solutions that are going to help me, I don't think maybe I would have been here, because I really did not have psychological support as a young person, right? I was really diagnosed at a really young age. And what I've always craved was just a person who could sit across me and ask me how I'm doing. And I tell them all the things that I'm feeling, without expecting them to be put into language. Or I say the story a lot of times because that is the only feasible memory I have of psychological support when I went for a checkup, my routine checkup at the hospital when I was much younger. And I did this other activity. It's like a hand activity where I had to name 5 people that I would call if I was not feeling well and I wanted to talk about what's going on in my life. And I put my family, my primary family, the people that I see every day at home, but I never really actually spoke to them. I just kept it all inside. And so I think people think they have it figured out, what we go through. I think I have it figured out because of my own experience. But every day I engage with other young people, I understand that even though the feelings might identify under certain existing categories that we've identified, they are not similar. They are really vast because our feelings are vast, right? We're different humans and we feel things in different contexts. So I think that's the greatest gap, a lack of mental and emotional support. If you're not receiving assistance or guidance in how to sort through feelings and thoughts, you may fall into other traps or other cycles of trying to restore this wound or this broken heart or make sense of a condition, because that's the only coping mechanism that you can get your hands on. You don't know what you need. And I think that's also how we happen. Exhibit A again, that's how I happen to fall into wrong lifestyle choices, because I was trying to make sense of these feelings that I was feeling. And because I wasn't able to talk or be understood, I thought that, okay, rather let me suppress it with other things. And so I think it's very important to ensure that young girls and women who are living with HIV have the space to simply be, to simply exist, to cry, to vent, to ask for help, right? I think that's something that is forgotten, but I think it plays a critical part in how we move differently as we grow, so that we don't fall for the story that we just need to survive and adhere to treatment. But there needs to be a bigger story, a bigger dream that they look forward to.
How do we prevent HIV over time?
I really love the concept of PrEP. I really love the concept of HIV prevention because it gives other people an opportunity to stay negative. These innovations exist because there are multiple ways of looking at things, right? And to stop a beast, you don't just look at it in front, you need to analyze it from all angles. So I really love the angle of HIV prevention, especially because of a lot of things that leave or expose young girls and women to vulnerabilities and risks to being infected with HIV. So it's a great opportunity to give them a tool of empowerment to ensure that they stay HIV negative within their different lifestyle contexts. And when we think about HIV prevention, I love how expensive, how diverse and wide the choice bracket is. We have oral PrEP pills, we have the Depivirin ring, and now we have tools, innovative tools such as the long-acting injectables, which basically looks at a young woman and also acknowledges the diverse realities that she could be going through, and not saying, I'm designing for a specific young person, but understanding that being a woman is a big thing, and inequalities follow us into into our everyday lives. And also, additionally, as a young girl that is living with HIV, I am really excited about the innovative long-acting injectable Lenacapavir. I'm really excited about Lenacapavir because it gives other young girls an opportunity to stay HIV negative. I do not wish it on anyone. Taking pills is absolutely horrible. Like every day, absolutely, absolutely horrible. And also because we know that there's a lot of things that can lead to one person being infected with HIV. And really, really, really appreciate the fact that developers, researchers, scientists saw that gap and saw that barrier and saw that situation that was happening in society and decided to design an option that was really vast and broad, that sees women and sees people in their different struggles and to create solutions for that. And so I'm really, really excited about it. And I really hope that governments ensure that it's accessible to everybody, because this is our greatest and our holy grail at ending AIDS by 2030. Nobody has to feel that their economic status denies them their right to access Lenacapavir. My name is Nomonde, and this is Crossing the Last Mile.
This podcast is brought to you by the partnership Together for SRHR.